Hello everyone, it's Tiger Arcade, and today we're going to be talking about the MOOG Matriarch. So yeah, I want to talk about the MOOG Matriarch today, give you guys some initial impressions after having owned it now for some time, and some likes, dislikes, so let's get into that. So let's talk about some likes and dislikes of the MOOG Matriarch. The number one thing that I really like about the MOOG Matriarch is probably one of the most obvious ones, the sound. Everyone that hears this instrument is blown away, impressed. It's based on, all of the, or many of the original modules that were created by Bob Moog, and so it's all analog circuitry. It's a very beautiful, distinct instrument. That's why it stands, like Moog says, at the pinnacle of the semi-modular, the modular family. Is it worth over $2,000? To each their own. It's really hard for me to say because I studied and researched this instrument a lot before buying it. And then when I finally got it, it wasn't like I was disappointed. If anything, I was very, very pleased with my purchase that I had made. Is it expensive? Absolutely. Is it worth that price? Again, I'm gonna let you guys decide that, but for me it was very expensive. It's the most expensive instrument that I own. So my second like about this instrument is, maybe you could even say this about all of Moog's instruments, is how much resources they put at your disposal, whether it's through videos, manuals, patch books, whatever it is. There's just so many resources to learn more about the instrument, expand on that instrument, and that's just one thing I really appreciate about Moog, is how they really encourage further exploration and discovery of their instruments. Now let's talk about a dislike. The second thing that really stands out and just really bothers me, the patch bay on the back. I really don't know what Moog was thinking when they did this. I really wish everything was just on the front, and maybe they even created a section for it or below, something else. Having to go all the way around or look over, and then the lettering's upside down, it's very inconvenient, and it makes it that much more difficult to use when I'm trying to patch it to other instruments, because there are some important patches that are on the back. So let's talk about my third like. I never thought that this would be something that I would end up liking, but it's the Paraphony. It's such a unique element. I've never owned a paraphonic synthesizer, but as I've explored that, I've actually come to like that more because I feel like I have more control over what I'm playing. It's something that if you don't own a paraphonic synthesizer, I would highly encourage that because it gives the user more control over what they're doing. So my third dislike, it's kind of a quirky one, but when I got the instrument and I started exploring the manual and the patch book, I was really confused because Moog provided me with patch cables. That's awesome. But I was like looking at their patches that they want you to explore, and their cables aren't even long enough. And I'm like, well, you've given me these for this unit and I can't even use them. You know what I mean? That might just be me. I didn't have super long patch cables, so I had to go out of my way and buy some. It's not a huge deal. I just thought it was kind of funny and weird at the same time that there wasn't cables included that could be used for their patches that they want you to try out. Just something weird. While we're talking about patches, that leads me to my fourth like, and that's the ability to expand upon it. I love how I'm able to connect this instrument to my DAW with the USB MIDI or MIDI in general. I love all the patch points. It was part of why I got this instrument as well, was because I already had some other semi-modulars that I wanted to patch with, and so being able to do that has really allowed me to expand, discover, explore a lot more. Something else is the hidden menu. I won't go over this too much because I feel like that should be an entire episode in and of itself. But in the manual, there is a whole section at the very end that just is like all these like button combinations. If you do this, it unlocks this, disables this, switches this, that. I mean, there's so many things. Like I said, I'm gonna be very brief about it, but there's some very useful things in there for exploration and discovery and just expanding upon the instrument. So my fourth dislike is going to have to be that I can't store patches. I understand that limitation very well with any semi-modular or modular for that matter, but I'm just trying to think of some things that I didn't like just playing it in general, and it was like, oh man, you know, I gotta go and I gotta patch that again. That's just pretty much any limitation with any semi-modular or modulars not being able to patch it, but that's what I really love about, for example, my Korg Minilog XD is the ability to save and recall patches. And something like Bob Moog did on the Moog Voyager was that ability to store patches. And some of this was based on the Voyager, which makes that so much cooler. So the last thing that I really like about the Moog Matriarch are the effects. So for example, the delay is something really fun to play with that really expands the sound. As soon as you add an effect, it just takes it to a whole nother level, and it's a beautiful delay that's on here. It works really well, and I love that you can clock sync it to stuff, and just dialing it a little bit really influences the sound a lot. It's really fun to play with. My final dislike, this might not even be considered a dislike. It's more of like I'm sad. I'm sad that they discontinued the Dark series. They're not going to be selling these anymore. Honestly, it felt more authentic and true to the original Bob Moog synthesizers and modules. That's more of my just personal preference. I think it's a beautiful, sexy instrument. I prefer them this way for many, many reasons. I'm sure I would have just loved, you know, the colored version just as much, but I prefer the Dark series, and it's sad to see him go. I almost thought that that should have been the standard, and maybe the colored ones were different. Or something else they could have done was just provided overlays for people to switch it however they want, you know, for further customization. I think the biggest confusion around the Moog Matriarch is the voices. People always ask me about, you know, it being polyphonic. I mean, there's obviously a difference. People realize immediately, like, well, what's the difference between the grandmother and the matriarch? Some say, well, they're both equal in their own right. You know, they just do some different things. I actually am going to disagree with that. I have played the grandmother before. Although this might not have the spring reverb that the grandmother has, I really feel like this can do everything the grandmother can do and more beyond that. This thing is a rich, powerful synthesizer because it has 4 oscillators that when you switch it to monophonic, it just sounds so much more intense and has that much more depth compared to the grandmother. The element of it being paraphonic is something that's very misunderstood. Paraphonic, what is that? Well, I've read before that paraphony is just a subclass of polyphony or a polyphonic synthesizer. I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that paraphonic essentially means here in this situation that all of the oscillators are controlled separately with pitches before it hits the mixer. So there's a lot more control, and then it's all influenced differently when you start patching it, so you're going to start getting some really quirky elements to it as opposed to true polyphony. Anyways, I'm curious what you guys think about the Moog Matriarch. Those are my thoughts, my own personal opinions, interpretations after having owned it now for half of a year. And on that note, thanks so much guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like or leave a dislike if you didn't like it. You know, I'm always willing to accept some constructive criticism to try to improve my content. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.